You have probably seen the phrase everywhere by now: shadow work. It has become a hashtag, an aesthetic, a set of journal prompts sold in tidy little packages. And somewhere along the way, the thing Carl Jung actually meant got lost. Because for Jung, this was not a trend or a weekend of journaling or a way to feel deep. It was one of the hardest and most important undertakings of a human life. So in this video, I want to give you the real thing, not the version made for social media, the version Jung actually meant. We are going to look at the 3 things you can do with your shadow, why only one of them sets you free, what integration genuinely is and is not, the mistakes that quietly keep people stuck for years, and how to actually begin. This is the video that ties the whole series together, and by the end, you will understand why Jung believed that facing your shadow is not a detour on the way to becoming whole. It is the only road there. Let's begin with the most useful map I can give you. Once you know that you have a shadow, all the disowned material we have spent this series exploring, you really only have 3 options for what to do with it. The first is to repress it, to keep pushing it down, denying it, insisting it isn't there. This is what most people do by default their whole lives. And the problem with repression is that the shadow does not stay buried. The energy has to go somewhere. So it leaks out as the temper that came from nowhere, the self-sabotage, the projection onto others, the symptoms that make no sense. What you refuse to face does not disappear. It simply runs you from underground. You have seen this in someone who insists, through clenched teeth, that they are not an angry person, while everyone in the room can feel the heat coming off them. The anger did not vanish because they disowned it. It only stopped being something they could control. The second option is to act it out, to stop repressing and instead let the shadow take the wheel, to indulge the cruelty, the rage, the destructive impulse with no restraint. This feels like freedom, but it is just the opposite failure. Where repression denies the shadow exists, acting out hands at the keys. Both leave you unconscious, both cause harm. You can see the swing between them in a single person. Months of rigid self-control, of being endlessly reasonable and accommodating, ended by a sudden eruption that seems to come from nowhere and frightens everyone, including themselves. That is not 2 different people. It is repression and acting out, simply taking turns. And then there is the third option, the rare and difficult one. Integration, to turn and face the shadow consciously, to know it is there, to own it as yours, and then to choose deliberately what to do with its energy. Not repressing it, not obeying it, relating to it. Why this matters for you right now. Almost everyone spends their life swinging between option 1 and option 2, white-knuckle control, then sudden collapse. Integration is the door almost no one walks through. This video is about that door. So let's be very precise about what integration is, because this is where most people misunderstand the whole project. Integration does not mean getting rid of your shadow. You cannot delete the parts of yourself you don't like. The attempt to do so is exactly what created the shadow in the first place. Nor does it mean becoming a darker person or giving your worst impulses free rein. Integration means something subtler and stronger. It means bringing the disowned material into the light of consciousness, acknowledging it fully as part of you, and so removing its power to control you from the dark. An impulse you can see is an impulse you can choose about. An impulse you deny is an impulse that chooses for you. Take anger. The person who represses their anger becomes passive, resentful, and eventually explodes. The person who acts out their anger becomes a tyrant. But the person who integrates their anger can feel it, name it, and decide with full awareness whether this is a moment to set a firm boundary or to let something go. The anger becomes available to them as energy rather than running them as a compulsion. The same is true of envy. Repressed, it sours into bitterness and quiet sabotage. Acted out, it becomes spite. But felt consciously, envy becomes simple information. It tells you precisely what you actually want, so that you can go and pursue it instead of resenting the people who already have it. That is integration. The trait is still there. What has changed is your relationship to it. Jung described the shadow as a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. Because to integrate it, you must expand your sense of who you are to include the parts you were certain you were not. This is why he called it a moral problem and not merely a psychological one. It asks you to give up the comfortable story in which you are essentially good and the trouble lies elsewhere, and to accept a harder, truer story in which everything human lives in you too. And the only real question is whether you meet it consciously or let it act in the dark. Why this matters now? You are not trying to become pure. You are trying to become conscious, and a conscious person is far harder to hijack than a good one. So how does integration actually unfold? It is rarely tidy, but it tends to move through 3 rough stages, and naming them helps you know where you are. The first stage is recognition, simply seeing the shadow, catching it in the act. And because the shadow is invisible from the inside, you usually first meet it in its footprints, exactly as we have discussed across this series. In your disproportionate reactions, in what you judge harshly in others, in your projections, your triggers, your dreams, the "that isn't me" moments. Recognition is the slow, humbling work of admitting, "that is mine too." This stage alone can take years, because the ego is endlessly inventive in finding reasons why the real problem is always, conveniently, somewhere else. The second stage is acceptance, and this is the one people most want to skip. It is not enough to see a dark trait. You have to stop fighting the fact that it exists in you, not approving of it, accepting it. This is delicate because the instinct is to attack what we find, to shame ourselves for it. But self-attack is just repression wearing a different mask. It drives the shadow back into the dark. Acceptance means holding the trait with honesty and without condemnation long enough to understand it. The third stage is integration proper, taking the energy that was locked in the shadow and consciously channeling it into your life. The buried anger becomes healthy assertiveness. The disowned ambition becomes honest drive. The exiled sensuality, creativity, power, each returns, transformed, as a resource you can actually use. Why this matters now? Most people get stuck at stage 1, seeing the same pattern over and over without ever accepting it, which is why insight alone so rarely changes anyone. Now let me save you years by naming the 3 mistakes that quietly trap people who genuinely want to do this work. The first is spiritual bypassing. This is using the language of growth and enlightenment to float above your shadow rather than face it. insisting you are only love and light, that you have done the work, that you are past all that. It is the ego's most sophisticated defense, pretending the shadow has been transcended when it has only been redecorated. You can usually spot it by its serenity, a peace that has never once been tested and that cracks the instant real provocation arrives. A truly integrated person does not claim to have no darkness. They are simply on honest terms with theirs. The second mistake is the opposite, and just as common: self-flagellation, turning shadow work into an exercise in self-hatred, endlessly cataloging your flaws, beating yourself up, mistaking misery for depth. But as we said, condemnation does not free you. It only presses the shadow down harder. The point is not to punish yourself for what you find. It is to befriend it. The third mistake is the most modern one: treating shadow work as an aesthetic, a set of prompts, a moody journal, a thing you perform rather than live. Real integration is not a vibe. It happens in the unglamorous moment when you catch yourself in a lie, or an envy, or a cruelty, and you choose to look instead of flinch. Why this matters now? The work is not in the words you use about yourself. It is in what you do the instant the shadow shows its face. Let me be honest with you about the price, because no one selling shadow work as a quick fix ever is. This is not a weekend project. It is the work of a lifetime, and it never fully ends, because there is always another layer, another disowned piece, another part of yourself you have not yet met. Anyone who tells you they have finished this work, completed it, arrived, has only stopped paying attention. The shadow is not a room you clean out once. It is a relationship you keep for the rest of your life. It is uncomfortable, often by design. You are deliberately turning toward exactly what you have spent your life avoiding. There will be moments when you do not like what you find. But here is what it gives you in return, and why Jung thought it was the most important work a person can do. You stop being secretly run by what you refuse to see. The energy you spent all your life holding the shadow down comes flooding back as vitality. Your relationship's clear because you are no longer using other people as screens for your own disowned material. And slowly, you become whole. Not perfect, whole. Jung was emphatic about this distinction. The goal of the work is not perfection, which is impossible and inhuman, but completeness, a self that has gathered back all of its exiled parts, the dark and the gold alike, and can finally stand as one undivided thing. There is a strange peace in this that nothing else gives, not the fragile calm of the person who believes they have no darkness, but the deep steadiness of someone who has met theirs and is simply no longer afraid of it. Why this matters now? The alternative to this work is not safety. It is a lifetime quietly governed by everything you would not look at. So how do you start today in a way that is real rather than performative? Start by tracking your triggers. For 1 week, simply notice every time your reaction to something is bigger than the moment deserves, every flash of disproportionate irritation, judgment, or defensiveness. Don't fix anything yet. Just write down what hooked you. That list is a map of your shadow. You will likely be surprised by how short and how repetitive the list is. Most of us are run by only a handful of disowned themes, circling the same few old wounds for decades. Then, with each one, ask the single question that has run through this entire series. What is this in me? Not to excuse anyone, but to find the disowned trait underneath the reaction. Third, practice acceptance out loud, in private. Name the trait plainly. There is cruelty in me. There is envy in me. There is a part of me that wants to be admired, and resist the urge to immediately apologize for it or fix it. Just let it be true. Pay attention to your dreams, which Jung saw as the shadow speaking in its own language, and to the figures in them you fear or dislike. When a figure in a dream frightens or repels you, try, on waking, to ask what it wants, rather than how to escape it. Jung found that the shadow, approached with curiosity instead of terror, often turns out to be carrying something you badly need. And above all, be patient and be kind with yourself, because harshness only feeds what you are trying to free. Why this matters now: you do not have to do this perfectly. You only have to stop looking away. So here, at the close of all of this, is the question to carry with you, not just for tonight, but as a quiet practice from now on. The next time someone or something provokes a reaction in you that is far too big for the moment, instead of acting on it, simply pause and ask, what is this showing me about myself? That single question, asked honestly, again and again, is shadow work. Everything else is commentary. Tell me in the comments what you have started to notice. I read everyone. And if this series has meant something to you, subscribe and stay close. In the next video, we follow the shadow into the place it shapes more than any other: who we love, why we are drawn to the people who hit us like lightning, why we keep falling for the same person in a different face, and what our love lives reveal about the parts of ourselves we still refuse to see. Until then, when the world provokes you, remember to ask whose face you are really looking at.